So for years, millions of people have been tapping a button on their phones every single day, accumulating a digital currency called Pi. The promise has always been that one day this Pi would have real-world value, that it would be more than just a number on a screen. Well, it looks like that day is starting to arrive. We're seeing a significant movement where shops are beginning to accept Pi as a form of payment. Online. Physical. This isn't just a test or a small-scale experiment anymore. It's a grassroots movement gaining serious momentum, turning those patiently mined coins into actual goods and services. The dream is slowly materializing into a tangible reality for millions of pioneers worldwide. The core of this new wave is called the Global Consensus Value, GCV, specifically $314,159 per Pi. That's a huge, almost unbelievable number. We'll explain later. For now, vendors are honoring this value. They are selling everything from coffee. Alright, let's talk about that big number GCV or Global Consensus Value. The community has rallied around a proposed value of $314,159 for a single Pi coin. On the surface, that sounds absolutely insane, especially for a currency that hasn't officially launched on the open market. But the number isn't random, it's a direct nod to the mathematical constant Pi, which starts with 3.14159. It's a symbolic, aspirational value that unites the community. The idea is that if millions of users and thousands of vendors all agree that this is the value, then for all intents and purposes within their ecosystem, it is the value. It's a powerful statement about collective belief. This concept of a consensus value is a cornerstone of the GCV movement. It's a departure from how most cryptocurrencies get their price. Usually a coin's value is determined by supply and demand on open exchanges, where speculation and market forces cause wild price swings. The GCV approach attempts to bypass that volatility. It proposes a stable, high value from the outset agreed upon by its participants. Talk is cheap, but transactions are proof, and the proof is starting to pour in from all corners of the globe. Social media feeds are buzzing with photos and videos of people successfully using their PI to buy real things. Vietnam, Indonesia, Nigeria, Philippines, local entrepreneurs are setting up shop and integrating Pi payments. Close-up of storefront sign, "We accept Pi," next to Visa and MasterCard logos. These aren't just one-off experiments either. Small family-run restaurants, electronics stores, putting up signs that say, "Pi accepted here," with prices calculated based on the GCV rate of $314,159. This is where the theory meets the pavement. Let's look at some concrete examples. In Vietnam, coffee shops and eateries where you can pay with the Pi browser wallet. Now this is where things can get a little confusing, so let's break it down. You might go to a big crypto exchange like Huobi or Bitmart and see PI listed for trading. You'll see a price, usually just a few dollars, and you'll see it fluctuating like any other cryptocurrency. This is what's known as an IOU, which stands for IOU. It's important to understand that this is not the real Pi coin from the Pi network. You cannot deposit the Pi you've mined from the app onto these exchanges, nor can you withdraw the PI from these exchanges into your Pi wallet. They are completely separate things for now. Diagram: two bubbles labeled Pi network enclosed mainnet and external exchanges with arrow open mainnet. The Pi network is currently in a phase called the enclosed mainnet. Think of it like a walled garden. All transactions like the shop payments we've been discussing happen inside this protected environment. The Pi Core team's official stance is that any listing on an external exchange is unauthorized and is not affiliated with them. These exchanges are essentially allowing people to speculate on the future price of Pi once it eventually launches on the open mainnet. Using Pi for payments, especially at the GCV level, comes with a pretty compelling set of advantages. The most obvious one is for the early adopters, the pioneers. Many have been mining for years, accumulating hundreds or thousands of Pi coins, at no monetary cost, just the daily effort of tapping a button. If a vendor accepts Pi at the GCV rate, these pioneers suddenly have access to significant purchasing power. They can turn their time and dedication into tangible goods, daily necessities, luxury items. For them, it's like unlocking a treasure chest. It feels like a massive win. Beyond the individual gain, there are systemic advantages. Pi transactions happen on a blockchain, peer-to-peer. This cuts out the middlemen. The banks, the card companies, payment processors. This can result in much lower transaction fees for merchants. Furthermore, Pi transactions are global and borderless. However, the other side of the coin has major challenges. The stories coming out of this emerging Pi economy are genuinely fascinating. They put a human face on what can otherwise seem like an abstract technological movement. A person holding a new phone bought with Pi, a receipt from a cafe showing the price in Pi, a shop owner smiling by a Pi accepted sign. Take the story of a young student in the Philippines who had been mining Pi on an old smartphone for 3 years. He used 0.0003 Pi to buy a new high-end laptop from a local electronics store that had started accepting GCV payments. For him, this wasn't just a transaction, it was a life-changing event. This is the kind of empowerment the project has always promised. On the seller's side, a small restaurant owner in Nigeria. She saw the growing local Pi community as an untapped market and decided to start accepting Pi for meals, pricing her menu based on the GCV rate. But as word spread on social media, her restaurant became a hub for local pioneers. I heard from one buyer who was excited to purchase a television from an online vendor claiming to accept Pi. He sent the Pi, but the television never arrived. This highlights the dark side of a decentralized, largely unregulated market. I saw a post from a group of pioneers who pooled their Pi to help a community member buy a used car he needed for his work. The entire transaction was a demonstration of community solidarity. When we place Pi payments alongside traditional methods like cash, credit cards, bank transfers, traditional payments are centralized. When you swipe your credit card, the transaction goes through a complex network. Your bank, the merchant's bank, the card network like Visa or MasterCard. This system is robust and secure, but it's also slow and expensive. It requires layers of intermediaries, each taking a small fee which ultimately adds up and is passed on to consumers as higher prices. Pi payments, on the other hand, represent the decentralized model. The transaction is a direct, peer-to-peer exchange between the buyer and the seller on the Pi blockchain. First, speed. A Pi transaction can be confirmed in seconds. Second, cost. Transaction fees are minimal, designed only to support the network's operation. However, traditional payment systems offer consumer protection and stability that crypto currently struggles with. If you buy a faulty product with your credit card, you can initiate a chargeback and likely get your money back. With Pi and most cryptocurrencies, transactions are irreversible. Once you send your coins, they are gone. The emergence of GCV-based commerce is nothing short of a tectonic shift for the Pi community. For years, the primary activity for millions of pioneers was the solitary act of mining, opening the app, tapping a button. Now that activity is transforming into active participation in a real economy. The community is evolving from a collection of individual miners into a network of consumers, producers. This creates a powerful new reason to be part of the Pi network. It's not just about accumulating coins anymore, it's about using them. This adds a powerful layer of utility and purpose to the entire project. This shift dramatically strengthens the internal cohesion of the community. It creates a shared goal and a shared narrative. Pioneers are no longer just waiting for the core team to assign value, they are actively creating it themselves. The GCV economy, however messy or experimental it may be, is a tangible product. Being a pioneer is no longer just about believing in a future outcome. This grassroots movement fosters a powerful sense of ownership and empowerment. Even if the open market value of Pi turns out to be disappointing, this internal economy could potentially survive and thrive on its own terms. So, what does the future look like if this trend continues? The road ahead is both exciting and uncertain. In the short term, the biggest factor will be growth. The success of the GCV economy depends on the network effect. Imagine walking into your local shopping mall and seeing the Pi accepted here sign in every other storefront. Imagine paying for your groceries. Imagine paying for your public transport. Imagine paying for your monthly bills. For this to happen, the platform will need to mature. The Pi core team would need to release more tools for merchants, making it easier to integrate Pi payments into existing POS systems. We would need more robust security features and perhaps even decentralized buyer protection or escrow services. The transition from the enclosed mainnet to the open mainnet will be the single most critical event. How that transition is managed will determine whether this community-driven value can withstand open market pressures, or if it will be a footnote in crypto history. If successful, the impact could extend far beyond the Pi community. Small businesses, particularly in developing countries, could be among the biggest winners. It could provide a blueprint for how to launch a global currency focused on utility first, rather than speculation. In the end, the story of Pi and the GCV is an unprecedented experiment in social economics. Will the collective belief of millions of people be enough to bootstrap a new global currency into existence? Or will the harsh realities of traditional market economics prove that value cannot simply be willed into being? Right now, we are in the middle of the story. The pioneers and merchants building this economy are writing the next chapter with every single transaction. Whether it becomes the future of money or a fascinating case study, one thing is certain. Millions of people are watching, and for the first time, they're not just watching, they're shopping. If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and follow the social threads where pioneers are sharing real-world proof. This is information about an experimental community movement, not financial advice. Do your own research. Thanks for watching. The experiment continues with every purchase. Music from the YouTube audio library. Subtitles, yellow comic box style. Voice, male narrator. See links in description.